I always had this date in mind, as I think I shared with you at the beginning, the 150th anniversary. As I wrote in my letter to the board, that's what I did to what's now called Amazing Grace in Baltimore. We had a grand 150th anniversary celebration. Bishop Crumley came, and it was a wonderful celebration. And then I announced my retirement, not my retirement, but that I was leaving. And so I sort of planned the same once I was well along in the presidency, that the 150th was a good time to step down and let somebody else take the seminary into the next 150 years. That to me is just healthy. That an institution has a smooth transition, and has a future is a healthy thing. I started at the beginning of the process by quoting Lyle Schaller, who said that 150th, but anniversaries are very dangerous events, because you can get stuck in the past. Now that's dangerous for an historian to say, right? I mean, I spent a lot of my time thinking and teaching about the past, but the past needs to be a resource for the future. The past needs to be a source for the future, and one always needs to recognize that God changes the context, and God is always coming to us out of the future that we need to embrace. Memory is not vision, so memory can be a resource for vision. We can retrieve things out of memory, but it's not vision. It can correct a vision, and that's why we want to look back at Philadelphia's legacy, but we want to interpret its legacy in its present context, and that context is very different from the past, even though we can talk about the pluralism of today, and a good historian like John Paul will be able to say, well, the past was pluralistic too. We just didn't recognize it. We just didn't recognize the multiplicity, of the past, or we just ignored huge parts of the world that have now come to our shores, and we now can travel there a whole lot more readily. So again, retrieval is important, but we do need to celebrate so that we have the capacity and the vision to live into the future. And what will that be? I think our school is already in a profound conversation about that. When I came here almost 25 years ago, students had to borrow far less than they do now. And so remembering that, we're in a very different context, but remembering that for its 150th anniversary, the school is trying to raise $10 million in endowment to resource our students so that they don't have to borrow as much. If we take internship, for example, that's something that we've always celebrated from the past, but it's different now. Students may have to do, for Lutheran students anyway, may have to do different kinds of internships. So we've got lots of people thinking about how internship could be different. Maybe over a couple of years, maybe they would be paid, to do internships, and that would be part of the curriculum. We know that the church is probably going to be smaller than than it was in the recent past. Part of our problem is we always think that the recent past was what's always happened time immemorial, and that isn't true. If you go back a little farther, one would find that a lot of congregations were smaller. And again, we can retrieve some things from the past, even though it'll be different. So we're now talking about more bivocational pastors and church leaders. That might even be faculty, who might serve here and Gettysburg, or serve a congregation and here as well. There are models of that in the past, and so we have to prepare for a leaner future than may have been true in the last generation. But it all has to serve the gospel. It all has to serve Christ's mission, the church, and not what we think is important, because God's going to provide a future anyway. and our stewardship, I think, is to read that future faithfully, and to end where I began, is to take the best hints and half guesses, and pray that that God will guide us carefully through what's really quite challenging, right? We're on the other side of the Great Recession, and the other side of the Great Recession has affected the church. It's affected the church's institutions. It's affected individuals. And it has caused us to focus on our core mission as never before. We have to know what we're called to do. And I've been wanting to say more and more readily now that we're called to prepare leaders. That is our core mission, to prepare public leaders for the church. And it means that there's some other things that we can't do in these leaner times. Not that we shouldn't do them, or we wouldn't want to do them, but this is what we do, and we need to do that well, and also be a faculty that also helps to teach the church, right? That my colleagues are all doctors of the church, and so we have a teaching function, and that has to go on as well. But the primary focus has to be our students. And of course, if I had a crystal ball, I would know exactly what to say, but I'll venture some hints and half guesses, as T.S. Eliot would say. And I want to begin with a quotation, and that's that Martin Marty once said that if he sort of said he wasn't a betting man, but were he to bet, he would always bet, on churches that are in the Augustinian tradition, the churches that have a good, healthy relationship with the culture around it, and yet are also critical of the culture around it, but are not absolutely dependent upon the culture, but also not over and against the culture. So that the traditions like the Lutheran tradition and the ecumenical traditions with which we work here very comfortably, are very adaptive to the world around us, and we take the world that God gives us and serve it with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so I am not among those who is overly worried about the future of the church. God will provide, and it is God's church. When I was an urban pastor in Baltimore, we used to have a Bible study together, and we had congregations that were facing enormous challenges. And one of us would always say, at the end of the Bible study, because we got off the Bible study and we would be talking about issues that were challenging us, it's God's church, it's not ours. And so we were always quick to remember that it wasn't about us. And I think that's so important to say. at this juncture. I think the ELCA in particular and the church in general has a very promising future. First of all, because God is going to lead it and always going to provide new leadership for it. And secondly, that the other ELCA seminaries and we have been very faithful in adapting to the new missional context. I think this school is one that knows how to tack like a good sailor on a sailboat. In the context in which God gives us. We've positioned ourselves to be a strong Lutheran seminary that's ecumenical, as the world, and the church becomes much more ecumenical. But gosh, we're now talking about interfaith things. So, and we've positioned ourselves for that as well, to be in healthy dialogue with our sisters and brothers of different faiths. But we're extremely multicultural, and everybody knows that it won't be long, and Caucasians will be in the minority in this country, and for the first time in the history of this school. Excuse me. Persons of color. There were more persons of color in the entering class than there were Caucasians at LTSP, and I just think that feels right. That it feels like that's where we should be, and that we have the integrity to be that way, both as a faculty, as a student body, and an administration. Is a good thing. So I'm confident that God will lead us in the directions in which God has already taken us, and I'm confident about that future. That the faculty has worked very hard on the new curriculum, which is flexible, affordable, and relevant. And I think we're lagging a little behind in online theological education, distance learning. John Kaler, who's behind the camera here, was pushing us years ago, and I think my colleagues and I have valued residential learning so much that we probably took a little bit too much time on that, but we're embracing that now, full steam. We recognize, that we need to do that, and so I think we'll balance our very strong residential and part-time program with a very healthy online program as well. So we are in, as a school, we are in a major metropolitan area where we draw a lot of full-time and residential students. We're in Philadelphia. That's an attractive city, for students to come from across the country and across the world. And I think we've adapted by God's grace to be a place where we do theological education with integrity in relationship to the context around us. Well, I remember when we dedicated the Brosman Center, Carl Kruger slipped me the program for the dedication of the old dorm, 100 years before at least, and on it the president was complaining about how people didn't want to support the seminary, and he was saying that a lot of folks hadn't given as much as it costs to buy a little package of matches, but a package of matches was probably relatively expensive in those days. I know, I'm joking, I don't know, but he was lamenting that people didn't really understand what it costs to prepare public leaders, and so we might lament that the the church, as much as I praised the church earlier on, but now only gives about, I think Jonathan Stranger just says, maybe 2% of all of its income, to prepare its leaders. It's never been any different. That parishioners have always just kind of assumed that leaders will come, and they almost are brought by the stork or something, or come from other congregations, and you don't really need seminaries to prepare them. Now, the institutional church at times has probably been stronger than at other times. John Kaufman, whom we all loved and revere, said that the church goes through cycles, and the cycles are that people want to either give through a mediating institution like a synod or churchwide, or they get tired of that and then they want to give individually in designated giving, which is the cycle he thought we were in now, where people want to give in a more atomized way, and then they'll get tired of it and say, there's got to be a better way than to get all these letters from Philadelphia Seminary asking for money all the time. Why don't we just give through the synod? So the synod, gives a nice healthy grant, and we'll know things. So he liked to say that things went in cycles that way. So there were times when synods were able to give more, and individuals had to give less. Now we're in a time where we rely on individuals and individual congregations, because the synods don't have the capacity to do that. But the other thing that John taught me was that during the Depression, students really suffered here, and faculty suffered here. That what we now call the Ladies' Guild or the Ladies' Auxiliary, that it's not as operative as it used to be here, but used to bring coal to the students so that they wouldn't freeze to death in the old dorm. And oil is very expensive. Gas we don't have much oil anymore. Gas is very expensive, but we don't have to have people bring that basic utility to the place, even though, and a lot of folks get shocked by this, that Philabundance provides food for a food pantry for the students. That so they're many of them go to the food pantry in order to get staples, especially for weekends, because they don't have enough to provide for themselves. So history does repeat itself, and that we have downloaded the cost of theological education on the student. Might be a new thing, but the stresses and strains on a student to prepare for this wonderful vocation, namely Word and Sacrament ministry or other leadership roles in the church, is not new. There's always been a stress or a strain on them, and there's always been a stress or a strain on institutions like this. To be able to find its way through the economic challenges that the church faces and the culture presents. What I'm proudest of when I think about the last now almost 25 years that a number of us have been on the faculty, and of that for about 18 years I've been in administration, is our alums. I think we have one of the most amazing student bodies that one could imagine. And when I'm out visiting, if I'm at synod assemblies or at preaching with power or at the Episcopal conventions or anywhere with all of our constituent groups that provide us students, I am so impressed as to how our alums lead in their denominations, in their churches, in their cities, it's really exciting. Oftentimes, I know I'm being a little biased here, but I'll be at an assembly, and it's our alums who are providing music. It's our alums who are leading singing. It's our alums who are leading in the various committees as chairs or helping on the podium, and it just gives me a great deal of pride. Speaking from the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America perspective, that it gives me a great deal of pride when the bishops come and want to call our students into their various synods. On the national scale, our Region 7 bishops just frequently take almost all of our students. There are a few of them who want to go someplace else, but it just makes me so proud that students come here from all over the country, and many of them wind up in Region 7 or in the regions right around here. So we do the right thing to prepare them for public leadership. You can read the paper in Philadelphia and regularly see our UTI alums listed. We provide in many ways the leadership of the city. Bill Moore, who's now the chair of the Lutheran Theological Institute, was honored the other day, and somebody, well, we gave him an honorary, the Distinguished Alum Award, and when his bio was read, somebody said, "Does he run the city?" As I go on and about in the synods or other judicatories, it just gives me great pride to experience our alums and the people with whom we work. My understanding of being a president is to sort of capture the visions of so many people, around, and support them. So in other words, I've never really felt that it has had to be my vision, that had to be the school's future, but that my role as steward was to shape and support the visions of my colleagues, and so many people, who have dreamed for this school, and so also, many of the people in the community, have thanked me that the Brosman Center and this campus is sort of the town hall, and they've been so appreciative of the fact that this seminary is no longer reclusive, or has taken down its wall, so that the community feels welcome here. And not that they didn't in the past, it's just that oftentimes they didn't know we were here. They didn't know what we were or what we did, and so they're very thankful that we're here. The other thing that's meant a lot to me is younger faculty members who have said things that I have to say I didn't notice, and that is how I've helped them grow professionally. And I get an enormous sense of gratitude out of that. Some students have quoted me as saying things like you said before. You're not a student, Mark, but that I'll just say one more thing and then stop. That I don't recall ever having said, but that it has helped. In other words, that my teaching has helped, has been a good thing. This campus, this community has always been profoundly integrated into the Mount Airy and Philadelphia communities, but it has grown in that way, so much so that some people have said that we've really cultivated the public square and honored that vision for an academic institution. I think if people now ask what this institution is in Philadelphia or in Mount Airy. They know. There used to be an old test that if you ask a cabbie to take you to a seminary, if they know where you are, if they know what you are, that means that people know what you do. And I think the likelihood of that happening now in Philadelphia and in the region is much greater because of the faithful work that our faculty has done in emphasizing public theology. I'm proud of the MAPLE program, the Master of Arts in Public Leadership. I think that just follows that same theme, that we are intent on preparing leaders for congregations, for Word and Sacrament ministry, but also to serve in nonprofits and at the intersection of the nonprofit and the business world and theology. I'm very proud of the PhD degree that Margaret Krey spearheaded, and the graduate program that we have cultivated, and all of our graduates have jobs, which is a mark of distinction, and our leaders in their own right. I mentioned the Urban Theological Institute before, but that has grown and prospered now under Quentin Robertson's leadership. We went into a lull when Dr. Randy Jones died, but I think it's a mark of the institution that we looked for the best possible leadership, and it is now flourishing again. I know our new dean, Kieran Sebastian, Dr. Kieran Sebastian, the H. George Anderson professor of Mission and Cultures, regularly says that the way we welcomed him as someone from India, and not only as someone from India on the faculty, but into a leadership position, is a mark of this school and an accomplishment. So that Dean Rajashekar was our dean. We followed with another Asian dean, and that says something about this school, that we are very confidently Lutheran, and we are very confident about being multicultural and inclusive at the same time. For freedom, Christ has set us free, as Paul says in Galatians, and we live with that Lutheran understanding of freedom that is so important. We live with a good Lutheran understanding of neighborliness, so that we recognize everybody as our neighbors, both in the Mount Airy and Philadelphia communities, but also in our church life. Another hallmark, I think, of this school is that we have lived into the ELCA's ecumenical vision. So that except for the Moravians, we have on our faculty and in our student body students from every tradition in which we're in full communion. I'm proud of this school because we do everything with integrity. We do what we say what we do, and we are a thoroughly Lutheran school, confidently Lutheran, as Dr. Bob Robinson, our senior faculty member, likes to say, and also fully ecumenical at the same time. And there's no contradiction there, because that's the way the church is. That's the way that's where the world is going as God is leading the world and the church, and that's so important. It may surprise you that I didn't lead off with the Brosman Center, but I was called as president to fulfill the master plan that my great mentor and former president, you remember him, Mark and John, Bob Hughes, set out. So part of my calling was to finish what he had started. He built the Wiedemann Center, did a lot of the infrastructure work on campus, and the classroom building, or the Student Learning Center, was just the next step. So we moved into that automatically early on in my presidency. So the fact that the Brosman Center is there, I think we should just assume was part of the plan. What is really exciting is that our major stakeholders, especially our donors, et cetera, got excited about it and provided the resources for us to do it. We all did the Brosman Center together because we needed it for the people that we have. Margaret designed the classroom building, and Rich Stewart did all the technology along with John Kaler, right? And Kyle dreamed about the technology. Bob Robinson dreamed of the Lull Lounge and all the meeting space for students. Again, Margaret was critical in Bembo Hall. Carl Kruger in the exhibition room. If you just think about it, it was a project that we all did together. And again, Carl Kruger and all the archives people put the archives together. It was a community project, and we built it around the great oak, which is still alive, which is well beyond its lifespan. But the building did not go any closer to the great oak, lest we shorten its life, and it's already showing signs of age. But I think that's a value statement. It's not just people, but also this campus and and this beautiful arboretum that we steward here. But in terms of buildings, I think I'm almost prouder with the chapel. We had a donor who provided us the funds to renovate that chapel into the really beautiful sacred space that it is. And I'm most proud of what we've started and will continue on with the library. That this building is now, just well suited in its what you call HVAC. I know that's technical language, but heating and air conditioning, so that we can keep this really valuable collection in the best possible climate control. And I'm so proud of Carl Kruger and how he's led us in making sure that this is a most beautiful space. Even as this room right now where we are, right, has been turned into such a lovely meeting space. And then finally, that under Carl's leadership, we moved the archives from here into that fabulous space, under the Brosman Center. If people haven't gone down to see what we've been able to accomplish in valuing our history and valuing the region's history, and making it accessible for future generations. That we celebrated the Muhlenberg anniversary, the 300th anniversary, with such aplomb, and people came from all over, and we have the exhibit that came over from Halle that is now being shown all over the United States and Canada. Is so exciting. I think that has to be the Muhlenberg 300th. What would the proper term be? Tercentenary, or it has to be one of the real highlights, of the last 15 years at least. Dean Rajashekar and now Dean Sebastian and I have we committed ourselves to cultivate a new generation of faculty who would replace the generation that I've been privileged to serve with, and what we wanted to do was make sure that what happened with our group didn't necessarily happen in the future. When a whole host of us came, now some of us are thinking about retirement, Tim Wingert and Rob Madison, Rich Stewart, and I'm stepping down from the presidency, but I hope to teach for a couple of years. We were replacing a whole group of faculty that were retiring all at the same time, and especially Dean Rajashekar and I decided that we would strive mightily to make sure that we worked hard to call the best, but to get a number of faculty who were in their 40s, so that they could be here for quite some time, and there wouldn't be this massive shift that would make the alums tremble. What's happening to Philadelphia, right? Because we have a whole new generation of really exciting faculty members. They're multicultural. They're Lutheran. They're ecumenical. We need more women on the faculty. But this new generation of faculty gives me great joy, the seminary and the church is blessed by them. Those at the top of my list are the donors who believe in what the faculty and the students and the church is doing here. I am just so thankful that there are people in business, people who are children of pastors, people who thought they might become a church leader someday, and life circumstances, had them do something else. People who love their pastors or just love their church have fallen in love with this school and regularly provide us with the resources that we're given. I'm privileged to see the list of donations that Kathy Afflebuck, our data person, provides for us every week, and from $25 to thousands to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars that are given to us for our mission just makes me so thankful, because people do know the value of theological education, and are willing to support it. One donor, for example, that I know is close to your heart is Nancy Nolde, who's helped us remember a great faculty member, her husband, Fred Nolde, and all the good that's come out of that with the UN course, the human rights course, our students going up to the UN, to study the commissions, the great convocation that we have every year or every other year, when we focus on human rights. So to just give you an example of one donor, right, who just loves this school so much and wants the students to benefit and be public leaders in that score is a great example. I'm also then very thankful to the bishops of Region 7 and all the committees that decide to send the seminary grants. We're governed by the region and churchwide, and each of them sets aside a grant for us every year. And even in the hardest of times, in this Great Recession, they have held on and done the best they can. So I'm so grateful, to the bishops and the synods of Region 7. I'm hard on them at times because I believe that high expectations deliver excellent results, and so I expect them to support theological education because they govern us, and that's true. But on the same hand, Bishop Mark Hansen has been so faithful to theological education, has made it a priority. And I don't know if you know, Mark and Ione meet with the seminary presidents every spring. We meet for about two days together, and he tells us what he's doing, what his agenda is for the next year, and then he asks us what the pressures are on us and what we're about. And so he and Jonathan Strandrud, who's the director for theological education, and Steve Bowman, just are very, very supportive, and so I'm grateful for that. I will have served under 4 board chairs: Dr. Blank, Dr. Addie Butler, Dr. John Richter, and soon to be, we hope to be, Dr. Elise Brown now is the new board chair, and their support of me individually, and of course Dr. Blank, served more presidents as well, but their dedication to the office of the president is just so exemplary, and I thank them because the board officers have all been the same. I've only had really fine boards and just great trustees, and then as you know, we have a president's advisory council that is so faithful in providing us good advice and counsel, and we have the foundation board which manages our investments. So we have a very fine governance structure, and I'm so thankful to them. Never mind, all the other committees that we have that are advisory: the Urban Theological Committee, the Episcopal Advisory Committee, the Methodist Committee, the Maple Committee. There's so many committees that help us on that score. I could not go on in this way without giving thanks for my colleagues, because we just have such marvelous faculty, who serve this institution. They're so dedicated. They believe in the mission of the school, and they write. They serve the church. They teach. They serve on committees. Again, I have high expectations from them. I think that's what they expect, but they have risen to the occasion. They are so concerned about individual students. I don't know if people know that twice a year our faculty review all the students, and I'm always so impressed by how much they care about the welfare and the progress of our students. They are just wonderful, wonderful colleagues. I'm also very thankful for my colleague presidents in the ELCA system, but especially the cluster, Michael Cooper White and now Clay Schmidt. But before that, there were others. We worked very closely together, and I'm not sure people are aware of the fact that one of our celebrated accomplishments is that we have one library. We're sitting in the library, but one library in 3 locations that we're now sharing faculty with Gettysburg during these lean times. We're not merging. We're, one school isn't running the other, but we're as these schools have done before. We're sharing. We're collaborating, and I'm so thankful that our faculty has bought into this, so that we know in lean times we need to do creative things, and the cluster is there for that. We're doing the Maple program, the Intersections program with Gettysburg as well. So I'm really thankful for what my colleagues and I have been able to do together. And then without the staff, which like the two of you helping me out here, without the staff, the faculty, students, and boards would not be able to do anything at all. So we sometimes, I think, take our staff too much for granted, but they are so loyal to the mission of this place and love this school to such a great degree, and have taken us through very challenging times. I'm not sure everybody's aware of the fact that we have 50% of the staff that we had about 10 years ago. And that's a change. That's a change. It's been hard on us, to have to live into the new economy of theological education, the new realities post Great Recession. But people have taken it on and worked with it, and I'm just really, really thankful for that. And then it goes without saying, as I began, I'm thankful for every student who decides to come here. They've got other places they can go, but they decide to come here, and so I'm just so grateful for them. I should mention my wife, who puts up with me and leads this school as a registrar with such excellence and skill. But I think she knows how appreciative I am, and how much I value her professionalism as a great registrar. I've been fortunate in that during my years as president, publishers and colleagues have not let me drift away from my role as a historian, and especially as a specialist in the history of the interpretation of the Bible. So I think I've been part of publishing about 6 books or so during, I haven't even counted them, while I was president. And I probably have about 3 to 6 more contracts that I need to get to work on. So I want to teach, I want to write. And this would be I would be teaching after a sabbatical, and then I hope to be able to finish some of these writing projects that I have before me. The one thing I promise, as I did for my successors, 2 of whom were women at Amazing Grace, but I promise that I will not interfere. I have good boundaries. I will follow the model of my great predecessor, Robert Hughes, and even before that, John Van Orsdal. I will just simply be supportive of whoever succeeds me, and intend to do just that, support the school financially and with great moral support, and probably not even an iota of criticism, but just enjoy whatever direction she or he takes the school. So I learned that at Amazing Grace, even though I was in some sense that church's second founder, because it was a small struggling church, and now is doing quite well. I didn't go back for 10 years. But it was only when they invited me for the 10th anniversary that I went back. Now that's probably a little too much. It's probably too strict, to do that. But I intend a very healthy transition and a very healthy role as a supporter of whomever the board calls. I was talking to one of our students the other day, about the challenges of the church, and I was so proud of him because he said, this is our context. Don't worry about us. Let us have at it. We're used to this context. Let us go at it and do our ministry and mission in it. And when we prepare leaders like that, I'm not worried.